Mr. Alberti, you have option 1, 3, and 5.
Always wanted to be number 1.
Okay. Nye County faces a budget deficit of $2.7 million in the upcoming fiscal year. This represents 8% of the total budget. What is your plan for dealing with the deficit?
Well, I'd like to go back first to what they did to create the deficit they've got. We paid out $5 million to buy out retirement plans, and that was a big mistake because that money has to be paid back. Now we're looking at a deficit in the budget. Until we can actually get in and see the entire budget and they share everything with us, that's going to be a difficult answer. But I can tell you this, I never would have retired those people. I would have given them a new job. Their new job, their new definition of their employment would have been start looking for companies that we can find that will locate here for what we have to offer. That would be your job. Now, the bottom line to all of this is that saving money is not the problem. You can save until you cut to the bone. Nothing is going to get any better. You have got to increase the amount of income coming in. So I really wish that the question was, how would you bring more money into the community so more people have jobs, so we don't have all these empty stores in the town, so we don't have so many people out of work needing charity from us. Let's help them help themselves, and let's make this a much better and more prosperous community.
Ken Searles.
I find it very interesting in one of those moments when you find that an elected official has taken an early retirement to collect and go off to do something else. If they're elected, they should fill out their term. And as far as a retirement, I don't know why elected officials would expect a retirement at all. They were elected to do a job for that particular term and then be either re-elected or find another job.
Anyone else on the initial question? Donna Cox.
Like I said, more efficiency in government. They spend a lot of money in a lot of places they could cut. For instance, they do a lot of travel that I think is unnecessary, when in today's world you have
Frank Carbone.
Yeah, I kind of echo a couple of things that are up here as far as bringing more work to this community.
That's why the rest of the commissioners are supporting trying to bring it back. And we just need to learn how to readjust our budget and hopefully live without that money, because there's a lot of federal grants and things out there, and I think we can get money to this county without having to sacrifice ourselves in the future with the Yucca Mountain project.
Darrell Lackey.
Well, just like a lot of government programs, they start out and they have an intention and a message, and they, 30 years ago, okay, we're going to have to account for this depleted uranium storage, and but apparently, from what I've learned, they're not really needing it because they're putting all the depleted uranium in munitions that they're spreading all over Iraq and Iran. So they don't seem to really need the any of that. So basically, this is just a big front. Just like every time the federal government puts on a solar project, it's inherently going to fail because they want to show that solar can't work. You got to buy oil from the Rockefellers. Thank you.
Ken Searles.
I think I'm taking a more pragmatic view with regards to Yucca Mountain. As much power as Harry Reid thinks he has to keep it from coming, it's possible it may still happen if we have another 49 states turn around and say, you know what, we're going to put it in Nevada whether they like it or not. So my pragmatic view is, let's see if we can't take some of those fees that are charged to the other states for using it as a waste repository to benefit the people of Nye County and Nevada in general. Why not see about, for those who are fearful of leakage, let's provide them with a Medicare program or something on that order, Medicaid if you will, that will help to pay for whatever their fears are. Let the students who maybe here want to move, let them go to another state that uses it and pay just in-state tuition. Let's be pragmatic and use the money for the citizens.
Andy Alberti.
Storage for 10,000 years, I can't believe it. I moved here because I thought Yucca Mountain would be one of the things we would see. I don't see waste. I see opportunity. I see opportunity for jobs. I see opportunity for a university, a medical center. the ability to study what nuclear fission and fusion and everything else is all about, and I see it out there at Yucca Mountain. When you say you want something here, this is something I really feel we should have. And you think in the next 100 years we won't find the use for that material? Look at the last 100 years, what we've done and what's been accomplished. Thank you.
Darren Hesketh.
The technology from 30 years ago is not the technology that we have today. When we first started using some of those nuclear reactors, we used them down to a certain level and stopped using them. There is now technology available to go back and use them a second, a third time. There are people that are reprocessing it now. We need to relook at the technology, and I think we still need to bring it here for jobs.
I think I'll take number 3, which is one of the perfect numbers for the Trinity.
Well, Mr. Searles, you get number 5.
Oh, number 5?
Or excuse me, number 3. You're
Number
correct.
3 is the only one that was
You
left.
are correct. Okay. All right. How will you handle it when one of your constituents comes to you help regarding alleged mistreatment by the Nye County Sheriff's Office? Are you willing to get involved with the Nye County Sheriff's Office and the DA's office over these types of allegations?
Absolutely. Okay, there is nobody's individual rights that can be stepped on, as far as I'm concerned, by the Constitution. If there's someone who's alleged wrongdoing by the DA's office, by the sheriff's office, or by just the local beat cop, if you will, okay, then I would try and investigate all sides, okay, and try and come to some type of a reasonable determination of what is or isn't the truth, and then act accordingly.
Frank Carbone.
We're bound by the oath that we take when we get into the office. We must always stand for the people that elect us, and we got to do our job. It's simple as that. We just must protect our people.
Darrell, are you raising your hand or not?
Yes, I am raising.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, as I mentioned earlier about crime rings, it makes me, I had an Audi. I had 4 interlocking rings on the front grille, and you have the Olympics has 5 interlocking rings. The crime rings we have here would look like a Christmas tree here in Nye County. And I think once we start clipping those rings apart, the whole thing's all going to fall apart. Everybody's counting on everyone else to cover their back, all these corrupt people, and then once it starts falling, it's going to all come tumbling down. So they can either run, or they can do time, or whatever has to happen, but the people that are criminals need to be punished for what they're doing.
Andy Alberti.
I win. If there was mistreatment of the public, I would advocate a citizens review committee made up from some people from the Sheriff's Department and from the community, and if that didn't work, I'd call for a grand jury to investigate mistreatment by the Sheriff's Department of the citizens.
Donna Cox.
Yes, I think this goes back to transparency. I think anybody that mistreats the public is guilty of a crime, and it needs to be followed through with. And you can't do it from the outside. We've literally tried. That's one of the reasons CCSC exists, because we've been fighting political corruption, and it's impossible to do unless you're in a position where you can actually do it. And believe me, I'm not afraid of any of them. It doesn't matter who they are. If they're corrupt or they're mistreating the public that pays their wages, yes, they should be taken care of appropriately.
Okay, now we turn the questions over. Renee Goodhart, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, candidates. So, I guess to be fair, let's start from right to left. So, Ken, pick a number between 1
I
and 6.
want to thank people for sitting me for the far right, since I'm so conservative. Number 3.
Number 3.
May stuck with a perfect number.
What are your feelings about the way the Blag Road closure was handled?
For safety's sake, I believe it was closed appropriately to try and make sure that people didn't have accidents. I think that the determination with regards to who's responsible for the actions is taking far too long. That may be because of the number of attorneys that are involved with regards to trying to place the blame someplace else. But it has been a burden upon the local people who live nearby there and use that as a very heavily traveled main route of transport between their homes and between their work. I can think of one person I know who had to hire a taxi cab to get to and from work, and now because Black Road is out, it's costing her almost twice as much to get to and from work. That's an absurdity. That is extremely difficult for the individuals. I think that, again, it was closed appropriately for safety, but it's taken far too long to get it repaired and get it opened up.
Anyone else? Darrell Lackey?
Yes, as far as closing the road, I think everything was a distraction. I believe that this was done purposefully in order to contaminate our aquifer, to push the, they have test wells all over the place. As soon as they start pulling up contaminated water, they're going to force the infrastructure, and they're going to force the incorporation, which is going to, another layer of government just to cost us money. That is I believe that is the pure core of the whole thing on Black Road. This was done purposefully in order to push for the future. They cordoned it off, out of sight, out of mind. Now nobody's driving by, lights on. Thank you.
Andy Alberti?
There's two ways things get done, the government way and the private business way. The question I have is, how would private business handle it? And I don't think private business would have shut that road down for a year while they figured out who to sue. Somebody would have got in there and fixed it and then got the rest of it done later. So how do I feel about the Black Road issue? I think government shut it down looking for somebody to sue. And we don't need to have as many suits. What we need is to fix the road and get us back to doing the business at hand. Thank you.
Donna Cox?
This goes back to the issue where I was speaking about a prison that wasn't supposed to cost the citizens anything, and it is now going to cost you almost $4.5 million to replace that road. I think heads should roll over this one. This road should have never been closed down this long. They should have rolled those heads, and then they should have got in there with the proper people and got it fixed immediately. The county is definitely partially responsible for this because they have planning departments and zoning departments and building department people that should have inspected this, and this should have never happened. So guess what? You're going to pay for it.
Frank Carbone?
As I said in my opening remarks, we should have never had a Black Road issue like we had. We should have had that thing not only repaired before we started all this litigation, we should have made sure we understood why it happened. We had an inspector out there who gave the okay to close that hole, and here we got a problem. And you're right, we should have never probably put it there with a prison.
Donna Cox, pick a number.
Number 4.
With over half of the county's budget going to wages and benefits, do you see the county employees union an excess financial burden on the county budget?